There are moments in history when heaven seems to lean in, when the atmosphere around God's people begins to crackle with unseen energy. You can sense it in your spirit before you ever see it with your eyes, a divine pressure building beneath the surface of ordinary life. It's as if God has been drawing back the waters, preparing a surge that will sweep across every limitation, every dry place, every weary soul. That surge is favor, uncontainable, unexplainable, unstoppable favor, and it's about to hit like a tsunami. This is not poetic exaggeration, it is prophetic reality. For many who have endured the crushing weight of delay, disappointment, and opposition, the tide is turning. The same God who spoke light into darkness is stirring the depths of your circumstances, orchestrating a reversal so sudden that even your enemies will stand in awe. But hear this clearly: when the flood of favor comes, it will not find everyone ready. Some will drown in disbelief, others will rise on faith. This is a time to awaken, to prepare, to anchor yourself in expectation, because God's favor is coming and it will change everything. When God moves, He often does so in rhythms that defy human logic. We look for signs, we study patterns, we analyze timelines. But divine favor has a cadence all its own. It is not governed by human schedules or earthly calendars. You may pray for years, sow in faith, labor with diligence, and see no visible return. Yet when the appointed moment arrives, when heaven's timing intersects with your obedience, everything can change in an instant. That's how divine favor works. It's not a drizzle, it's a downpour. It's not a gentle breeze, it's a tsunami. One moment, you are standing in drought, wondering if God has forgotten your name. The next, the floodgates open, and what you once chased begins to chase you. The power of divine timing cannot be overstated. Throughout Scripture, we see that God's favor is not random, it's strategic. Joseph languished in prison for years, but in a single day, God's favor moved him from confinement to command. Esther lived quietly in obscurity until a divine moment positioned her to influence an empire. The pattern is consistent, the delay is never denial. God allows seasons of hiddenness so that when His favor arrives, it doesn't merely elevate you, it transforms everything around you. The tsunami of favor is not just about blessing, it's about reordering destinies, shifting kingdoms, and displaying the glory of God before a watching world. When we think of a tsunami, we imagine something sudden and overwhelming, a force that cannot be resisted. That's precisely how the favor of God operates when it comes in its fullness. But here's the mystery: before a tsunami hits, the ocean recedes. The shoreline seems to pull back, the water disappears, and for a moment everything looks emptier than before. Spiritually, this is the phase many believers misunderstand. When the blessings seem to retreat, when everything you depended on begins to dry up, that's not the end. It's the setup. God is drawing back the waters to prepare a greater release. What you perceive as loss is often the prelude to increase. Divine favor is never late. It arrives at the exact intersection of divine purpose and human readiness. That's why you cannot rush it. Some people grow restless and force what God has not yet released, and in doing so, they step outside the current of grace. But those who wait with expectation, who remain faithful in obscurity, will see a wave so great that it redeems every year that felt wasted. When the wave comes, it does not trickle. It engulfs. It multiplies, accelerates, and magnifies what God has already been building quietly beneath the surface. If you could see what heaven has been orchestrating behind the scenes, you would never doubt again. God's favor moves in dimensions unseen by the natural eye. While you're working on obedience, He's aligning opportunities. While you're sowing in faith, He's preparing hearts to receive you. While you're praying in the dark, He's shifting circumstances in your favor. And then, in one divine collision of time and purpose, everything that was once delayed converges in a moment of unstoppable acceleration. The magnitude of this coming favor will not be confined to personal blessing. It will touch families, businesses, ministries, and entire communities. It will break generational limitations and restore what years of struggle have eroded. There will be stories of sudden promotion, unexpected reconciliation, miraculous provision, each one a ripple in the larger wave of God's purpose. But make no mistake, this wave is not random. It is the fulfillment of divine timing. You've been walking through years of preparation, even if you didn't realize it. Every disappointment, every closed door, every sleepless night was not wasted. It was groundwork. God was anchoring your character so that when favor hit, it wouldn't crush you. It would carry you. This is why Scripture reminds us not to grow weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap, if we faint not. Due season is God's calendar, not ours. When that season arrives, the acceleration will be supernatural. Things that should have taken years will happen in weeks. Relationships that seemed dead will revive overnight. Dreams that once felt impossible will suddenly manifest with ease. But here's the crucial truth: the same force that brings blessing can also expose instability. If your foundation is weak, the wave that should lift you can overwhelm you. That's why God delays favor until you are ready to steward it wisely. When the tsunami of God's favor strikes, it will not just touch the surface. It will penetrate the depths. It will saturate every area of your life, bringing restoration to what was barren and hope to what was forgotten. You will not have to force doors open. They will burst wide by divine command. The connections, resources, and breakthroughs you once pursued will begin to pursue you. But remember this: divine timing ensures that favor never comes too early. If it did, it would destroy you. God waits until your roots are deep enough to handle the weight of His rain. So, if it feels like you're standing on dry ground while everyone else seems to be swimming in blessing, don't despair. You're standing where the next wave will form. The drought is only temporary, the silence only momentary. God is drawing back the waters of your life to release something so vast, so unstoppable, that it will redefine your entire landscape. When it hits, it will not ask permission. It will not come in manageable increments. It will come with power, with purpose, and with precision. You won't have to question whether it's God. Everything about it will bear His signature. The waiting, the pruning, the stretching, all of it has been leading to this. The wave of favor is not coming to those who merely wish for it, but to those who have endured faithfully in secret, who have kept worshiping when no one was watching, who have sown in tears and refused to give up. When divine timing collides with divine favor, the outcome is always explosive. Get ready for it, because the moment the wave rises, no force on earth or in hell will be able to hold it back. The flood of favor is forming, and when it hits, it will do in days what human effort couldn't accomplish in years. Before any great wave rises, there is always movement in the deep. Beneath the surface, beyond what the human eye can perceive, unseen forces are gathering momentum. The same is true with the favor of God. Before it ever manifests publicly, it is prepared privately. What looks like silence is often the sound of heaven working in secret places. God does not rush His process because He is building something that will last. The hidden seasons are not punishment. They are preparation. They are the depths where God forges strength, purifies motives, and aligns your heart with His purpose. It is in the deep that character is refined, faith is tested, and identity is anchored. Many grow restless in these hidden seasons because they mistake obscurity for abandonment. But the truth is, when you can't see what God is doing, that's when He's doing the most. Think of how the roots of a tree grow strongest beneath the ground, unseen by anyone. Those roots sustain the tree when storms hit, and without them, no amount of sunlight or rainfall could keep it standing. God's preparation works the same way. While the world sees nothing, God is establishing foundations deep enough to handle the coming elevation. The greater the wave He intends to release, the deeper the work He must first complete. There is a quiet wisdom in how God develops His people. He often hides those He intends to use mightily. He takes them through seasons of being overlooked, misunderstood, and underestimated, not to diminish them, but to mature them. In the stillness, He shapes their perspective. In the waiting, He teaches them trust. In the silence, He teaches them to recognize His voice. By the time His favor becomes visible, they are no longer driven by the applause of others, but by the approval of heaven. If you are in a hidden season right now, it means God is preparing you for something weighty. He doesn't waste depth on shallow assignments. In the depths, God also aligns circumstances in ways you cannot imagine. What feels like delay is often divine choreography. He is positioning people, places, and opportunities to meet you at the exact moment of release. It's as though He's setting a stage behind closed curtains, arranging every detail so that when the light comes on, everything fits perfectly. You may only see confusion or disappointment right now, but God sees connection. You may think nothing is happening, but in the realm of the Spirit, there is movement, strategic, powerful, unstoppable movement. This is why discernment is vital in seasons of preparation. If you misinterpret the silence, you might sabotage the process. You might try to open doors that God has deliberately kept closed. Patience is not passive, it's a spiritual posture. To wait on the Lord is to remain positioned in faith, trusting that He is doing more in the unseen than you could ever accomplish in the seen. When you embrace this truth, you begin to rest in His timing rather than resist it. The waiting becomes worship, and the hiddenness becomes holy. Consider Joseph again. His time in prison was not wasted. It was training. God was preparing him to interpret more than dreams. He was preparing him to interpret destiny. In that dark cell, humility replaced ambition, wisdom replaced pride, and endurance replaced impulsiveness. So when the moment of release came, Joseph wasn't merely promoted, he was prepared. The favor of God didn't destroy him because the depth of his preparation sustained him. What looks like confinement may be God's classroom, teaching lessons that success will one day demand. We often pray for God's favor without realizing the weight it carries. Favor can open doors that character cannot sustain. That's why God takes time to develop both. If He released everything too early, the very blessing meant to elevate you could crush you. So He works in the deep, strengthening your spirit, purifying your heart, and teaching you dependence. The hidden season is not a denial of destiny, but its foundation. The deeper the foundation, the higher the structure can rise. In this stage, you may feel like nothing is moving, but in the spirit realm, the currents are shifting. God is aligning resources you don't yet know exist. He's preparing people who will one day carry your vision alongside you. He's stirring the hearts of those who will open doors you could never unlock on your own. Every prayer you've prayed, every tear you've sown, every act of faith you've made in the dark, it's all accumulating momentum. When the time is right, those unseen movements will break the surface with explosive force. If you've been faithful in the quiet, know this: you are not forgotten. Heaven has not lost your file. God has not misplaced your promise. The silence is strategic. The darkness is developmental. You are in the depths because something massive is forming. Just as an ocean's power gathers strength below before rising into a wave, your preparation in obscurity is gathering power for the favor to come. When it finally breaks forth, it will not be a small ripple. It will be a surge that carries you into a new dimension of purpose, influence, and fulfillment. So hold steady. Keep serving, keep praying, keep believing. The hidden depths are not the end of your story. They are the birthplace of it. What God is building beneath the surface will soon manifest with unstoppable force. The deeper the work, the greater the wave. When that wave of favor finally hits, you'll look back on this season and realize that every quiet moment, every closed door, every lonely night was worth it. Because in the depths, God was preparing you for something far greater than you could imagine. Before a tsunami strikes, the earth itself trembles. The seafloor shifts, the ground quakes, and everything stable begins to move. In the natural, that shaking is a warning of destruction. But in the spiritual, it is often a sign of divine reconstruction. When God begins to move, things that once seemed secure start to shake. Structures built on human wisdom begin to crack. Relationships not grounded in truth begin to break apart, and the familiar begins to give way to the unknown. It feels unsettling, even painful, but it is the evidence that God is working. The shaking always precedes the surge. What looks like loss is often preparation for overflow. When God allows shaking, it is never to destroy but to detach. He shakes what is temporary so that what is eternal can remain. You may see doors closing, opportunities drying up, or people walking away, and wonder if you've done something wrong. But often, it's the opposite. The shaking reveals what was never meant to stay. It strips away false dependencies and uproots what cannot survive in the next season. God is making room for the wave of favor He is about to release. And if He didn't shake certain things loose, that wave might sweep away what you've built instead of lifting it higher. In moments of shaking, trust becomes your anchor. Faith is not proven in comfort, it is proven in chaos. Anyone can believe when everything is stable, but real faith clings to God when the ground moves beneath your feet. It's in the shaking that you learn who He truly is. Not just the God who blesses, but the God who stabilizes. The shaking exposes the foundations of your faith. It reveals whether your trust has been rooted in outcomes or in the unchanging character of God. If your faith is anchored in Him, then no amount of disturbance can dislodge you. In fact, the very waves that terrify others will carry you to places of victory. Throughout Scripture, God has used shaking to usher in transformation. When the Israelites stood at the edge of the Red Sea, everything behind them was collapsing. Their past, their security, their sense of control. But that shaking prepared the way for a miracle. When the earth shook around Paul and Silas in prison, it didn't signal danger, it signaled deliverance. The shaking broke the chains and opened the doors. What others feared became the very instrument of their freedom. The same principle applies today when life begins to tremble. Don't panic. Pay attention. The shaking is a signal that God is rearranging things for your good. The most dangerous response to divine shaking is resistance. Many people try to hold on to what God is removing, clinging to the familiar because it feels safe. But if you insist on holding what He's trying to shift, you'll miss the blessing that follows. When God shakes, He's not trying to harm you, He's trying to heal you. He's exposing what's weak so He can replace it with what's strong. He's unsettling what's false so He can establish what's true. The sooner you release what He's asking you to let go of, the sooner you'll find peace in the storm. Sometimes the shaking comes in the form of transition. A job ends, a friendship fades, a dream changes shape. You may not understand it, but trust that God does. He's not dismantling your life, He's reordering it. Every tremor has a purpose. Every disruption is preparing the soil for new growth. The greater the calling on your life, the deeper the shaking will feel, because God must ensure that no part of your foundation is unstable. He's not satisfied with surface-level faith. He's building something that can withstand the magnitude of His favor. If you look around and everything seems uncertain, take heart. God shakes before He shows. He disrupts before He delivers. You might not recognize His hand in the moment, but later you'll see that what felt like destruction was actually direction. The people who left made space for new ones. The plans that failed pushed you into a better path. The instability that frightened you prepared your heart for a greater trust. This is the rhythm of divine shaking. It's never random, it's always redemptive. So don't curse the shaking, cooperate with it. Let God remove what no longer fits your destiny. Let Him strip away pride, fear, and false comfort. Let Him redefine what you depend on, because when the shaking stops, what remains will be unshakable. The tsunami of favor that's coming requires a purified foundation, one that's flexible enough to flow with God's movement, but strong enough to carry His glory. When the surge of blessing comes, you will look back on this season of shaking with gratitude. You'll realize that every tremor was a mercy. Every disruption was divine protection. God was not punishing you, He was preparing you. He was ensuring that when His favor hits, you will not be swept away by it, but sustained through it. The shaking before the surge is not the end. It is the signal that something magnificent is on the horizon. The ground may tremble, the familiar may fade, but the promise stands. After the shaking comes the surge, and when it does, nothing can stop the flood of God's favor from overtaking your life. Faith is the only anchor strong enough to hold you when the waters of life begin to rise. When the tide of uncertainty pulls at your feet, when circumstances shift without warning, when prayers seem unanswered and logic offers no explanation, faith becomes the line that ties your soul to something immovable. It doesn't remove the storm, but it steadies you in the midst of it. Faith is not blind optimism, it is radical confidence in the nature of God. It is believing that even when you cannot trace His hand, you can trust His heart. When the waves of change roar, when fear whispers that you will drown, faith stands still and says, God has not brought me this far to abandon me now. When the tsunami of divine favor begins to build, faith must be the anchor that keeps you grounded. Favor can come suddenly, and with it comes the temptation to be swept away by excitement, pride, or distraction. Without faith, you may mistake God's favor for your own achievement. Without faith, you may lose focus and begin to worship the blessing instead of the giver. But true faith keeps you centered. It reminds you that favor is not a reward for performance, but a revelation of God's goodness. It's faith that allows you to walk in abundance with humility and to endure waiting with peace. Faith is forged in contradiction. It grows strongest when everything seems to oppose it. Abraham believed in the promise of a son, while his body in Sarah's womb said it was impossible. Noah built an ark while the skies were clear, and no one had ever seen rain. Peter stepped onto water that could not hold him, until faith made it solid beneath his feet. Every great movement of God begins with someone willing to trust what they cannot see. Faith does not wait for evidence, it creates it. It does not require comfort, it thrives in challenge. When God's favor begins to move, only those anchored in faith will recognize it for what it is. Others will see confusion, you will see confirmation. Faith is not passive, it acts, it moves, it speaks, it positions you in expectation. Before Elijah saw the rain, he told his servant to look toward the sea. 7 times he sent him, not because he doubted, but because he was certain that God would do what He said. That's what faith does. It looks again. It keeps checking the horizon when everyone else has given up. It prays one more time, sows one more seed, praises one more moment longer. Faith refuses to fold even when nothing makes sense, and because of that persistence, it stands ready when the wave finally hits. You can feel the difference between someone anchored in faith and someone tossed by fear. Fear reacts to every change in the wind. Faith remains steady. Fear focuses on the problem. Faith focuses on the promise. Fear says, what if it doesn't happen? Faith says, even if it doesn't, I'll still trust Him. When the shaking comes, faith will not let you drift into despair. It will hold you firm in the knowledge that God is sovereign, that His timing is perfect, and that His plans are good. When others panic, faith speaks peace. When others run, faith stands still. Faith also shapes how you interpret the waiting. Without faith, delay feels like denial. But with faith, you begin to see waiting as training. You understand that God is strengthening your endurance, refining your patience, and sharpening your discernment. The same wave that carries one person forward can destroy another, depending on how anchored they are. Faith ensures that when the favor comes, you don't lose your footing. It prepares you to receive without pride, to advance without arrogance, and to give without fear of loss. In a world driven by sight, faith will make you look foolish until it makes you fruitful. Others may not understand your confidence, your peace, or your persistence. They may see you holding on to a promise that seems impossible and wonder why you haven't let go. But faith doesn't need validation. It needs vision. It sees what others cannot because it's anchored in the eternal, not the temporary. It's the assurance that even if everything else changes, God's word remains unshakable. When the tsunami of God's favor strikes, faith will be your stabilizer. It will help you discern when to move, when to rest, and when to speak. It will keep you from being seduced by success or intimidated by challenge. It will whisper truth when the noise of life gets loud. You will walk through open doors not with arrogance, but with awe. You will steward blessings not as possessions, but as sacred trusts. And through it all, faith will remind you this wave came from Him, and it exists for Him. So let your faith be anchored deep, deeper than emotion, deeper than reason, deeper than circumstance. The waters will rise, the winds will roar, but those who trust in the Lord will not be moved. When others are swept away by fear, you will be lifted by faith. And when the unthinkable favor of God comes crashing into your life, you won't be overwhelmed, you'll be elevated. Because faith isn't just what carries you through the storm, it's what enables you to ride the wave. God delights in doing the unthinkable. His ways are not bound by human logic, and His timing often defies reason. When His favor moves, it carries with it the power to reverse everything the world thought was settled. The unthinkable becomes possible, and the impossible becomes the stage upon which His glory is revealed. God's favor is not a subtle drizzle, it's a downpour that redefines reality. When it comes, it doesn't merely adjust your circumstances, it transforms them entirely. What once looked like an ending becomes a beginning, what was lost is restored, and what was barren starts producing beyond imagination. Throughout Scripture, God specializes in divine reversals. He took Joseph from prisoner to prime minister in a single day. He turned Ruth's mourning into marriage and positioned her in the lineage of the Messiah. He lifted David from the pasture to the palace, Esther from orphanhood to queenship, and the disciples from obscurity to world changers. In every case, God stepped into situations that looked hopeless and flipped them upside down. That's how His favor works. It doesn't need favorable conditions to operate. In fact, it thrives in impossibility. The darker the backdrop, the more brilliant His light shines. When divine favor strikes, it dismantles the logic of your enemies. Those who dismissed you will be forced to witness your elevation. Those who said it was too late will watch as God redeems lost years and moments. The world may call it coincidence, but heaven calls it convergence, the intersection of faith, timing, and divine purpose. You may have spent seasons being overlooked, ridiculed, or underestimated, but when God's wave of favor hits, it won't just lift you, it will astonish everyone who thought they knew your story. That's why it's called Unthinkable. It's not just beyond expectation, it's beyond imagination. But before the reversal comes, there's always a refining. God often lets the situation reach its bleakest point, so that when He moves, there's no question about who deserves the glory. He allows the fire to grow hotter, the night to grow darker, and the odds to grow longer, because He's setting the stage for a miracle that will silence doubt. When He moves, He doesn't just change the outcome, He rewrites the narrative. He takes what was meant for evil and turns it for good, transforming pain into purpose and tragedy into testimony. Divine reversals are not limited to ancient stories. They are happening now. There are people on the edge of despair who will soon see restoration so swift it will leave them speechless. Marriages thought to be beyond repair will be revived. Finances that were suffocating under debt will suddenly breathe again. Bodies that doctors gave up on will rise in strength. The same God who reversed the curse at Calvary has never stopped turning things around. His nature is to redeem, to restore, to resurrect. The tsunami of favor that's coming will not only bless, it will reverse the damage of years. God's favor moves in a rhythm that confuses human systems. You cannot predict it, control it, or replicate it. It arrives when obedience meets opportunity. It shows up when your faith refuses to die in the face of delay. Sometimes, God will allow you to exhaust every human strategy so that when His favor comes, you'll know it wasn't your doing. You'll stand in awe, realizing that your only contribution was trust. That's what makes divine reversals so powerful. They testify that grace is greater than effort. When the unthinkable happens, humility must remain your posture. God doesn't reverse situations just to make you comfortable. He does it to make Himself known. Every breakthrough carries a responsibility. The blessing is not the end. It's an invitation to greater stewardship. When your season of reversal arrives, remember the purpose behind it. The miracle is not just for you, it's for those watching you. Your life becomes a living demonstration of what God can do with someone who refuses to quit. So don't fear the impossible. Don't despair when the situation seems irredeemable. The God you serve is not intimidated by statistics, opinions, or impossibilities. He thrives in the realm of the unthinkable. He allows things to reach their breaking point so that when He acts, there will be no mistaking His hand. You may be standing in the ashes of what you thought was over, but God is about to breathe new life into it. The story isn't finished. It's being rewritten in heaven's ink. When His favor hits, expect sudden shifts. Promotion that makes no sense, reconciliation that seems supernatural, provision that defies explanation. You won't have to force it, manipulate it, or beg for it. It will find you, overtake you, and carry you further than your own effort ever could. And when it does, you'll realize that every delay, every disappointment, every detour was part of the setup. The very thing that felt like a curse was paving the way for blessing. The wave of God's favor doesn't just move obstacles, it reverses them. It takes what was working against you and makes it work for you. That's the essence of divine reversal. The pit becomes the pathway. The prison becomes the proving ground. The cross becomes the crown. The unthinkable is never impossible for God. It's His specialty. So prepare your heart. Stand firm in faith. Because when this wave hits, it won't just change your position. It will rewrite your story, redeem your past, and remind the world that nothing is too hard for the God of reversals. When God releases favor, it is never meant to terminate on the individual. It is meant to overflow. Divine favor is not a trophy to be admired. It is a tool to be used. It carries a purpose beyond personal comfort or recognition. God blesses you so that you can become a blessing, not so that you can hoard what was meant to flow through you. Every wave of favor that hits your life carries within it an assignment. The abundance that comes from heaven is designed to advance the kingdom on earth. It's not just about what you receive, it's about what you release. Favor that is not stewarded for God's purposes eventually stagnates, but favor that is poured out multiplies. When God entrusts favor to someone, He's looking for channels, not reservoirs. A channel allows water to move freely, nourishing everything it touches. A reservoir, however, collects and contains until stagnation sets in. In the same way, God's favor flows through those who understand that it was never about self-exaltation. The moment you begin to think favor is proof of superiority, you stop the flow. But when you recognize that favor is a divine trust, something sacred placed in your hands to impact others, then God continues to pour more. Because He knows you won't waste it, you'll work it. This is why many people are promoted not for their perfection, but for their purpose. God looks for hearts that can handle the weight of influence without being corrupted by it. His favor carries a mission. It places you in positions where you can bring light into darkness, wisdom into confusion, hope into despair. If you think the wave of favor is just about getting ahead or feeling blessed, you've missed its purpose entirely. The favor that's coming will be strategic. It will open doors in places where God wants His name glorified. It will position you in conversations, companies, and nations where your presence will shift the atmosphere. Every opportunity is a divine appointment disguised as success. The reason some people's favor fades is that they confuse privilege with purpose. They begin to think God blessed them because of their talent, their diligence, or their uniqueness, forgetting that the favor of God is unearned. It's grace, not merit. It's a divine entrustment, not a personal accomplishment. And with entrustment comes accountability. The more favor you carry, the more responsibility you bear. God's favor is never casual, it's covenantal. He gives it with expectation, not suggestion. You are blessed to build, prosper to provide, elevated to encourage. True favor transforms the environment it enters. When Joseph stepped into Pharaoh's court, Egypt prospered. When Esther walked into the king's chamber, a nation was spared. When Daniel entered Babylon, wisdom triumphed over witchcraft. Each of them carried favor that overflowed, not favor that stopped with them. That's the kind of favor God is about to release again. Favor with purpose, favor that changes systems, restores families, revives communities. It's favor that multiplies not because of status, but because of stewardship. Overflowing favor also carries a test. It exposes what's in your heart. When blessings increase, pride lurks near the door, waiting for an opening. The true mark of maturity is not how you handle lack, but how you handle abundance. Will you stay humble when doors open? Will you stay generous when increase comes? Will you remember the God who gave it, or will you take credit for yourself? The wave of favor is both a gift and a responsibility. God entrusts it to those who understand that the greater the blessing, the greater the call to serve. The overflow of favor should produce overflow in gratitude, compassion, and generosity. It should make you sensitive to the needs of others. The person who's been delivered from poverty should become a deliverer for others still trapped in it. The one who's been healed should become a vessel of healing. The one who's been promoted should lift others as they rise. That's the divine economy of favor. It multiplies when it moves. When you hold it tightly, it diminishes. When you release it freely, it expands beyond measure. God's favor is a current, not a container. It's meant to move through your words, your work, your relationships, and your resources. Every blessing has a ripple effect. When you allow that favor to flow outward, the wave keeps building. Heaven keeps supplying what earth keeps distributing. You'll never run dry because you've chosen to be a vessel, not a vault. So when the tsunami of favor arrives, don't just receive it, redirect it. Let it flow through you into the lives of others. Support the vision God puts before you. Give where He leads, serve where He calls, speak where He sends. You are not the destination of favor, you are the distribution point. And as long as you remain faithful with what you have, God will continue to pour more. The favor that's coming is about more than prosperity. It's about purpose. It's a divine strategy for kingdom expansion. It's God saying, I can trust you with more because you've proven that what I give you doesn't control you. When that wave hits, may it find you not only ready to receive, but willing to release. Because when favor flows with purpose, it never stops. It becomes an unending current of grace, influence, and transformation that changes everything and everyone it touches. When God releases favor, the supernatural becomes natural. The realm of the impossible begins to bow to divine authority, and what once seemed unimaginable suddenly manifests before your very eyes. When God decides it's time to demonstrate His glory, no opposition, no delay, and no demonic interference can stop what He has ordained. The coming wave of favor will not be subtle, it will be a divine disruption, a shaking that reorders everything around you. What took years will happen in moments. What was blocked will break open. The word, suddenly, will define this season. Just as a tsunami begins deep beneath the surface, unseen but building with unstoppable momentum, so has the hand of God been moving beneath the surface of your life, preparing a supernatural acceleration that will change everything. There are seasons when God works quietly, and then there are moments when He moves with such power that human logic can no longer explain it. This next wave of favor will be the latter. It will be a time when testimonies will outnumber explanations. People will ask, how did this happen so fast? And your only answer will be, God. His favor will invade timelines, accelerate processes, and rewrite outcomes. Delays will become platforms for divine surprises. Closed doors will turn into divine entryways. What was meant to break you will become the stage where God displays His glory. This is the season where heaven's timing meets your obedience and creates something miraculous. The unthinkable is not meant to terrify you. It's meant to prepare you for all. God specializes in doing what no one anticipates. When the Israelites stood before the Red Sea, they couldn't imagine that God would split it. When Joshua faced Jericho, no one could have predicted that shouting would bring walls down. When Lazarus was dead for 4 days, no one thought resurrection was possible. Yet in each case, the unthinkable became reality when God's power intersected with human faith. The same is about to happen again. The favor of God will produce results so extraordinary that even you will be astonished. But this kind of favor is not given to the passive, it's given to the prepared. God does not release a tsunami of blessing to those standing in fear, but to those standing in faith. He is not looking for spectators, He's looking for vessels. Those who are positioned, alert, and surrendered will be the first to experience the overflow. Preparation is not about striving, it's about alignment. It's about cleansing your heart, sharpening your discernment, and listening to His voice with renewed sensitivity. The wave that's coming is powerful, but only those anchored in His presence will ride it without being swept away by distraction or pride. The supernatural acceleration that's approaching will demand humility. It will expose motives. It will separate those who want God's hand from those who desire His heart. Some will chase the blessings, others will pursue the blesser. The latter will carry enduring favor. Because God is not releasing power for spectacle. He's releasing it for purpose. The miracles that come will not be random. They will be strategic. They will confirm His word, draw souls to His kingdom, and reestablish His authority in a world that has forgotten Him. Every breakthrough will carry a message, every promotion a divine assignment. The speed of what's coming is not just for convenience, it's for completion. God is redeeming lost time and fast, tracking His plans through yielded vessels. This is not the time to doubt, it's the time to declare. Your words are the sails that catch the wind of divine favor. Speak faith over every barren situation. Prophesy life where there's been delay. Declare that this is your season of divine movement. Don't wait to see it before you believe it so you can see it. The wave is already forming. It's gathering strength in the unseen realm. Heaven's alignment is in motion, and when the time comes, what's been hidden will suddenly appear. When the unthinkable happens, remain steady. Don't let amazement become distraction. When the doors open, walk through them with purpose. When the provision comes, steward it with wisdom. When the healing manifests, testify boldly. This favor will not be fleeting. It will be generational if you remain faithful. What God does through you in this season will ripple through your family, your community, your ministry. The tsunami will not just hit you. It will move through you. God's favor is not just coming to bless your life. It's coming to realign your destiny. Everything that was out of order is about to come into divine alignment. What the enemy used to delay your progress will become the very thing God uses to demonstrate His supremacy. The season of waiting has not been wasted. It has been preparation. Every prayer, every tear, every act of faith was adding pressure beneath the surface, fueling the coming surge. Now, the deep is stirring and the wave is rising, so stand ready. Anchor yourself in faith. Keep your heart pure, your ears open, and your hands lifted. When the tsunami of God's favor hits, it will lift you to places you never imagined, restore what you thought was lost, and reveal how mighty your God truly is. Get ready for the unthinkable, for when it comes, it will not only change your circumstances, it will redefine your entire future.